Out of the Ordinary Insights, brought to you by Investec Specialist Bank.
You're watching Captains of Industry here on CNBC Africa. I'm speaking to Shameel Joosub, the CEO of Vodacom. Shameel, thanks very much for your time.
Thank you.
5 years old, you were selling samosas outside factories. Take us back.
Well, it was more out of necessity, Bronwyn, than anything else. My mum and dad had gotten divorced when I was 10 months old, and we were 4 kids at the time, and basically had to, there wasn't money for extras. So I started helping my brother, selling samosas and so on from 5 years old. And by the time I was 8, I had my own business. I would catch a bus, go to Marabastad, and used to walk around, used to buy earrings for 10 cents and walk through the bus stations and so on, calling out two bob, and selling my earrings. So, and that's how I got spending money.
How much of that early experience and a bit of a rude awakening to the world has shaped you today as leader of Vodacom?
Well, I say to people, the playground's gotten just a little bit bigger because what I did afterwards, I used to buy ice popsicles, and I decided that it wasn't that cool to sell ice popsicles. So I divided the playground into different areas and got everybody else to sell it for me. And so now, I think the playground's just a little bit bigger, and you've got to do the same with your distribution channels, and try and do it. But yes, it has shaped a person a lot from the perspective that, at a very early age, one was trading and learning very different skills. And that's helped me a lot in later life, because I'm still a trader at heart, if you like.
You started at Vodacom, was it almost 20 years ago?
Yes.
And
just before
in
my
accounting,
23rd birthday.
you were in the accounting division within the Vodacom fold. You were doing a couple of extra jobs at the same time as well. One of the stories is selling perfumes, those ones that the testers that are not for sale, but I believe it was all above board, yes. Nothing illegal about it. You've also been quoted as saying that part of the reason that you have got to where you are is because you've got a big mouth. Yes.
So, maybe just take you a little bit back through school. I've done multiple different things, but when I finished school, there was an option to go full-time to university. So I used to have 4 jobs, and effectively, so I'd have my accounting.
So there was
job.
No sleep with those 4 jobs? Absolutely no time for sleeping?
No. But there was some time for fun still. But the important, what happened is I started my articles the minute I finished school. So I started doing my BCom degree through UNISA and doing my articles at the same time. And then at 6 o'clock, I would start my second job, and then I'd sell perfumes. My uncle was in exile in London, and he'd set up a whole perfume, a number of perfume stores. So I'd buy the testers from him, and then sell it locally to pharmacies and so on of perfumes that hadn't come out in the South African market yet. So it was quite a nice, lucrative business. And then I'd write up people's books to generate extra revenue.
Coming back to that statement that you've got a big mouth, and I mean it in a positive way, because it's what you've said. That's why you are where you are today. You weren't satisfied with just being in the accounting department at Vodacom.
No, so I think one of the big things was always pushing. I always say, if you're asked to do X, do Y and Z, and you're really going to push. You've got to make yourself heard, and you've really got to show people that you can do more. And I always say to people, you're almost going to build it in such a way where you can't be ignored. And if you're doing that, you'll only but gain success.
You were then made head of Vodacom Equipment. That was because you managed to negotiate a deal at a 30% discount. Siemens handsets, that is the story I recall.
Yeah. So I was working in very close to Alan. I was in financial management, and he came to me one day.
This is, of course, Alan, not Craig.
Alan, not Craig. And he said to me, we've never bought handsets before. This is the deal that they're offering. See if you can get the price down. So I got the price down by 30%. He said, oh, good. Now see if you can sell it. These are the people you need to sell it to. So I sold all the phones the same afternoon. And Vodacom equipment was born. He said, oh, that's quite nice. And then the vendors, the retailers at the time, and the service providers liked this idea. And they said to Alan, well, why don't you actually set up a unit doing this? And so I almost created my own opportunity, and Vodacom equipment was born. And before we knew it, the company was generating 800 million of revenue and doing exceptionally well.
How quick was the transition from the head of Vodacom Equipment, the company that you set up in the fold, so to speak, to becoming the managing director of Vodacom South Africa?
So I went from, in 1998, being about 26 years old, being made managing director of Vodacom Equipment, and actually founding it. And then basically in 2000, we started to buy up the service providers, GSM, Vodac, Teljoy, Cell Phones Direct. We put all of these things together, and the business was running at a loss. And then Alan put me in to turn it around and made me the MD of the service provider. So in 2000, I was running the whole commercial side of Vodacom. And in 2004, at the end of 2004, I took over as the MD of South Africa.
Vodafone then decided to take you into a bigger challenge, so to speak. They wanted somebody to turn around Spain. You again have been quoted as saying that you love South Africa. You weren't necessarily open to the international travel opportunity, but you also couldn't look a gift horse in the mouth, and that was potentially a test for whether you were able to run the Vodacom group. Do you agree?
Agreed. And I think, having turned down two big opportunities before, and probably in hindsight, not the wisest thing to have done, but the Spain opportunity came up. And
so this was the third time they pushed you into something.
It's like, here's a big opportunity, will you come and help us turn it around? And, as I said before, I'm not really that excited about leaving South Africa and the family and support networks and so on. But it was probably the most amazing experience, from being able to see a different market, being able to experience a different culture, and really just to widen one's horizon. And I'd actually recommend that to anyone. Actually, some time out is actually very good, just to experience something different. And the good part about being in Europe was that South Africa is about 18 months to 2 years behind. So you can see what went well and what didn't go well, and then learn from that, and then obviously coming back, you know what to do and what not to do.
You had to fix the operation. Where did you start?
Well, the first thing was understanding the environment, and we had some issues with the structure of the market and the way it was structured, but also people. People play a big role. And I always say you wait a month or two, and you very quickly work out who's the doers and who are the people who can tell you what's wrong with the world, but they have no idea how to fix it. And those are the ones that have to go. And you have to make those hard decisions, because, and having done turnarounds a few times now, you have people that are doing the same thing in the same way, and it's always going to yield the same result. So unless you change that, you either they can change and adapt, or you've got to change them to yield a different result.
But you have no problem making the tough decisions for the greater vision.
Correct. You have to have a vision of what you want to achieve, and then you're going to ask yourself, do you have the team players to deliver that vision? So, first thing I did in Spain was suss out the environment, gain a better understanding, because the other part, you can't knee-jerk. You need to understand the consequences of your decisions and make sure you understand the market properly before knee-jerking. And so that was the first part. And then a clear strategy of what we needed to do, and clear targets and priorities for people to achieve it. And then you assess the capability of people and their ability to do it. And then you change out the ones that, are not going to deliver.
A number of managers potentially watching this interview will be thinking, how do you then, once you have looked at your team and decided who must stay and who must go, how do you attract the right talent into the fold?
Well, I think you've got to be very clear about the gaps in your team and what the skills that you really need. And then you go out and you look for the best skills that exist in the market. And I say you've got to steal that skill from players that impress you. So where you see big companies that have impressive people, for instance in retail, you'd be looking at Zara in Spain, or one of the big retail groups. And that's the type of skill that you'd be wanting to attract into.
Go after the best, in other words.
Go after the best.
Let's talk now about Vodacom and where the group is headed. Looking at the international operations, I see that Tanzania is a big part of the group, followed by DRC, and this is just from a revenue perspective, and then Mozambique. The international strategy, and that obviously being the rest of Africa, is finally coming to fruition?
Very much so, and I'm very pleased with the growth that we're having in Africa, and also again, it's come down to the people we've put into the countries, and I think one of the things that we've done differently is we've made sure that we have very strong excos in each of the countries, because in the end they're going to deliver on the ground. And that's
Did you change the teams that you inherited?
No, in fact, we've made some changes, but we had a very strong guy coming in from international, who's now taken over actually as the CEO of Telesunera, Johan, and Johan made a lot of the changes. So one did come in, and a number of the changes were already made. We further improved on that now, and yeah, so we're managing to continuously unlock the value in the African operations. I think the other big part for us is investment. It's a capital-intensive business.
7 billion rand in South Africa, 3 billion into the rest of Africa. Do you see those numbers rising?
Well, I think it's important for us to at least maintain that. But yes, as a percentage of revenue, we need to continuously invest at least 30% plus. And I think you create an advantage by putting the investment in. So you've got to build out the coverage, and you're going to build out the advantages. So you've got to build strong advantages for yourself in each of your operations.
Are you chasing the rest of Africa because of the slowdown that you're seeing coming through in South Africa?
I think it's important to balance the portfolio, and to basically look for new growth areas. So we're looking for new growth areas both in South Africa and externally. So a big focus area for us is obviously there's still a lot of growth left in the African operations that we're in, but also to add a few more new operations will be very beneficial, especially so that we diversify some of our revenue away from South Africa. But at the same time, there's opportunities in South Africa, for instance, in enterprise, where we still think there's a big opportunity to capture more of the let's call it the fixed space, because in mobile we're very strong, or converged, the unified communication space in South Africa. And so we're launching new products and services and really trying to capture that market in a bigger way.